Check a Pro Joe here on the Check a Pro radio show, talking home improvement as we do. You know, a lot of you are probably wondering what that funny looking outlet is near your sink, or maybe it's in the garage. Maybe it's even outside near the swimming pool. It's not a typical AC outlet. It has these buttons on it, and sometimes it's frustrating because if one of those buttons pops, you lose electricity, not only in that outlet, but in possibly other ones as well. So I brought in an electrician. This guy knows his stuff. His name is Luke Strange. He is from Cool Hand Electric. How are you doing, Luke?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love our listeners. They love their homes, but they don't have all the answers. And by the way, everybody, when it comes to electrical work, always hire a licensed and insured pre-qualified Check a Pro electrician, much like Luke is. So the GFCI outlet, basically, what is it and how does that help with safety?
Yeah. No, great question. These are, that's what we're talking about right there. There's some different brands. This is just one I had in my little toolbox for training purposes, but they say to test monthly and to reset it. So the basic idea of this is, whereas your circuit breakers will protect the wiring from overheating, the GFCIs protect people from getting shocked. Okay. So if there's power going from, instead of the constant circuit from the hot to the neutral, instead of all that amperage staying on those lines, if it's bleeding out to the ground, that's what ground fault. If it's bleeding out to the ground, that has the potential of shocking somebody if they touched it. So it kicks off automatically. Now, we see this in the wet areas. You had mentioned that. That's a common thing. If water were getting inside of these spots, or maybe on the cord or something that's plugged into it, if moisture's getting in there, that voltage, instead of being properly on the circuit, it can start bleeding out into other surfaces, and kids or anybody can go and touch something metal and they become the shortest pathway to ground and get themselves shocked. So that's the purpose of them. When they trip off, it'll have a light or it will lose its light. Just depends on the brand. But if there's no power there, it's really common to be able to hit the reset button really firm. And actually, I've noticed some of the elderly folks or ladies with really long nails, have a difficult time pushing in. So they think they're pushing it hard, but it's not hard enough. So if that's the case, you can get like a pencil eraser and you can push that sucker in like that and firmly push it in. It should reset. If it doesn't, holler at somebody. But also it's got power going in, but then it can also protect other lines going down that way. So if something down the road looks like a regular outlet, that one could be GFCI protected from one of these. So it's just, they're also accurate for about 10, 15 years, depending on how much they're used. And then they are supposed to be tested frequently. So that's kind of a general, is that helpful at all on the GFCIs?
No, absolutely. And you know what happens? I know you know this as an electrician, Luke. You'll get a call at the office from a homeowner, and they'll say, for some reason, the outlet in the garage doesn't work. And I went to the breaker box. I went to the panel.
Yeah.
Everything seems to work okay. What they don't know is maybe in a closet somewhere or maybe next to a sink somewhere, the GFCI breaker tripped, and in line there could be two other outlets and they don't work anymore. And so why don't you talk a little bit about how that happens?
Yeah, so that's happens a lot. When someone builds a home, it's highly engineered, and so they're going to put the more expensive outlets in one spot and do the bare minimum outlets they can down the line. It saves money on building, but the irritation is someone gets into the home, they're not trained on where everything's are. If they bought an older house, they don't know where that stuff is, and they don't really care about it or learn it until there's not power. So they could be put in some of the weirdest spots. We found them in the weirdest locations. And then sometimes they just don't work well. So there's power there, but they're not power feeding out and it won't reset. Sometimes that's common. So it is a frustration. They're important. So that's a good thing. They do protect people from getting shocked, but trying to locate them and to thoroughly test if they're tripping properly, that can be a frustration. We do get it a lot, especially, we're Texas. People will have their freezers. We hunt a lot, obviously. So they got freezers full of meat, and that goes out. They go out on weekend, and lots of storms trip something outside, and then that garage outlet is out, and then you got bad, you got all of your meat that you buy. Or my wife and I, we go half with our friends on a cow, so we have like $1,000 worth of steaks and hamburger processed meat in our freezer. And when that goes out, it's so irritating. But, I get the purpose of it. And even some old appliances will trip them off. And it seems like a nuisance, but those old appliances aren't really safe. They're kind of sending voltage out on the metal frame. So those ones got to go too. They could shock somebody. So they're necessary, but yeah, they can be very, very frustrating. Absolutely.
Luke, before we go, you brought up a really good point. A lot of homeowners don't know about what's going on in their house, from their plumbing to their air conditioning to their electrical. Here's a recommendation, everybody. When you get your home inspected before you buy it, don't just have the home inspector go through it and give you a report. Go with the home inspector and ask questions. This is your home. This could be $250,000 or $500,000 home. Okay.
Absolutely.
And people will ask more questions about their new Chevrolet than they will their home. And you need to understand where things are and how things work. Now, for me and Luke, we love homes. We understand the systems in a home because we're into home improvement. But you should really understand, where's the water heater? Where's the electrical panel? Where are these GFCI switches? Because yes, you do have them. If you have an older home, it should have been upgraded by now. And that's another reason why you should talk to Luke, actually, because it is dangerous. It is code now. And once an electrician starts working on something, they got to bring it to code. Luke, thank you so much for joining me here on Check A Pro Radio. I really appreciate your expertise today.
Absolutely.